Welcome once again to Automundial, the weekly home of all the latest motoring news and reviews. This week, the Honda Civic Type-R may be on its last legs, but Hyundai seems to be ready to swoop in and save the day.
Plus, MG and Citroen go head-to-head as they both tried to kick the year off by winning the budget full-size electric SUV battle.
We've also got a Dodge Dragster that might hint at a change coming to the electric Charger in 2026.
That's all coming up. First though, the news.
And now that we can say 2026 is here, it's time to dive into one of the top stories you can expect to follow throughout the next 12 months. Top of that list is the seemingly imminent approval of full self-driving tech in Europe. A key backer of so-called supervised FSD is Tesla, and the American car manufacturer has struck a deal with the Netherlands, allowing it to demonstrate its system's viability to government officials via public test drives until February. At that point, the Dutch government can then submit an application to the European Commission, where a decision will be made on FSD's union-wide approval. Full self-driving features are legal around the world in countries like the USA, China and Australia, where legislation has opened up a new tech marketplace. Should the EU Commission reward Tesla's efforts, expect 2026 to be an exciting year for autonomous mobility.
At the end of last year, Dodge made a visit to Las Vegas and the 2025 SEMA show to unveil a particularly interesting modern-day muscle car. The Charger 6-pack, with its 6-cylinder engine and retro looks, showed combustion and electrification can live in harmony within the same platform. Well, to go one step further in that endeavour, here is the Hustle Stuff Drag Pack Hemi. And yes, that final word does mean what you think. Yes, this is a stripped-out version of the road-going muscle car, and yes, its body panels are somewhat different to the standard car, but this is a modern-day Charger featuring the brutal bark of a Hemi V8 engine. Built for the drag strip, this is a competition model with just 50 examples ever shipping to customers, making it quite the rare bit of kit. In the name of competitive secrecy, Dodge and its performance team, SRT, is keeping power figures close to its chest. But we do know that this drag pack is running a 354 cubic inch or 5.8 litre Hemi engine with an aluminium block and pistons, plus a forged crankshaft. In other words, it's light where it needs to be, but retains enough strength for serious power figures. A thoroughbred racer is all well and good, but what interests us is the fact that Dodge chose not to beef up the straight six for racing, instead sticking to its old faithful V8. So, with Ram providing customers with the Hemi engine once more in its 1500 pickup, and the block clearly fitting within the new Charger's chassis, could 2026 be the year V8 power returns to Mopar muscle?
A new year means plenty of new, mostly insignificant changes come to the automotive industry stateside in the name of yearly refreshes. Whilst most of these supposed facelifts limit themselves to a new colour on a random trim level, this year sees the Genesis GV70 gain quite a few notable ease of use improvements. From a less thought-out 2025 variant, this year's model now gets a sleek 27-inch widescreen across the dashboard, encompassing both driver display and infotainment screen, better tying the cabin together. Lower down, climate controls now sit within their own touchscreen and are always accessible. The rest of the cabin is very much as it was, with nice quilted leather on most trim levels, quaint chrome details, good space for both rows of seating and a decent sized boot. On On the outside, Genesis will try to convince you that the grilles, headlights and wheels have all been redesigned, though they're in reality minor touch-ups when compared to the dashboard. The Americano-Korean manufacturer is also claiming better handling and on-road comfort from steering and suspension setup tweaks. So if you found the old pseudo-luxury SUV to be a crashy monstrosity, perhaps this 2026 model year will change that. Under the bonnet, it's still a choice of either 2.5-litre 4-pot or 3.5-litre V6, both turbocharged and both pumping out over 300 brake horsepower, with slightly better gas mileage. The cheaper 4-cylinder does feel like the thinking man's choice here. In fact, where the V6 will cost between $66,000 and $72,000, the smaller engine hits the market from a little over $50,000, with its top sport prestige trim going for $61,000, with all its fancy extras like a heated steering wheel, cooled seats and premium sound system. Overall, the Genesis GV70 has always felt like a cheap route towards the luxury end of the market, and this latest lick of paint only accentuates that frugally flaunting personality. When you consider what else is available for that sort of money, it becomes an even more interesting option.
Hitting the market from $52,000 is the Audi Q5, another premium offering in the mid-size SUV space, though its specifications list only really gets interesting from the $56,000 mid-range Premium Plus model. That gets adaptive cruise control, a heated steering wheel and a similar Bang & Olufsen sound system to the Genesis, though lacks its ventilated seats. Something else the Four Rings is missing when put up against the Genesis is power. A new model launch in the middle of last year, the current Q5 only gets one power offering in the United States, that being a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder good for 268 bhp. Despite the lower power, better torque does mean the Q5 will tow around £900 more than its Korean rival. If you thought the GV70 screen setup was hectic, the Audi Q5 continues the German manufacturer's obsession with rivaling Mercedes' Hyperscreen, completing the 11.9-inch virtual cockpit and 14.5-inch central screen. A further 10.9 inches of display sits in front of the passenger, leaving us wondering why you'd need so many pixels on the school run. Regardless of how square your eyes get whilst driving it, space inside is just as welcoming as the Genesis, though you'll never get the same wannabe Bentley upholstery on the Q5, instead featuring a blander, more basic approach to materials. If all that wasn't enough, Audi's warranty program ends just after 4 years and 50,000 miles, rapidly leaving those that actually buy the car rather than lease it in a tricky situation. Genesis, on the other hand, offers 5 years and 60,000 miles of coverage as a base, extending to 10 years and 100,000 miles for the powertrain.
After the break, Dacia injects rally raid ridicule into its next city-going concept, and it's fair to say it's a funky freak.
Welcome back. Coming up, if you like your family compacts with towering wings and track record capability, you'll want to stick around.
In the coming weeks, Dacia's Rally Raid racing team, the Sand Riders, will be making its way to the Arabian Desert for the 2026 Dakar Rally. Unlike other manufacturers taking part, we struggle to see any similarity between this dune-bashing demon and the Romanian carmaker's regular fleet. But with a brand new concept, perhaps all that is about to change. This is the Dacia Hipster concept, and whilst its name might point to a 40-year-old in bright jogging trousers mumbling along to the latest rap anthem, its looks do remind us of the Renault Group's current attempt at rally raid's glory. From square headlights to floating rear lights and a blocky, almost buggy-esque overall shape, it's all very Sandrider. Though with diminutive wheels on each corner and the ground clearance of a robot vacuum cleaner, we doubt you'd get very far into the desert with this vision of the future. All about showing what the true back-to-basics vision of personal mobility would look like without opulent size and wasteful grandeur, this 3-metre-long city car fits 4 and even has square footage left over for a boot. Here at Automundial, we very much like the smaller things in life, especially Dacia's own Spring, an already very compact little EV costing less than £20,000, but supposedly even smaller than that production model with a greater focus on affordability. Should this hipster ever hit the streets, we look forward to seeing just how cheap Dacia can make electric mobility.
All the way back in October 2024 at the Paris Motor Show, Citroen lifted the covers on its latest family SUV, the C5 Aircross. Now making its way to UK roads, its long-range battery model is one of the first electric vehicles to benefit from the UK government's £3,750 EV car grant. As a result, it's one of the few full-sized electric SUVs available from under £33,000. So what do you actually get for your money, and is going budget a good choice in 2026? First off, it's worth noting just how striking the latest Citroen is, making the most of the manufacturer's recent design language improvements with its sharp headlights, boxy dimensions and sharp details. This C5 is the first actually handsome Citroen in quite a few years, in our opinion. No longer a flimsy-looking carriage with more plastic than body, it's a muscular vehicle with which you can entrust your children on the school run. As we say, only the long-range motor benefits from the top grant in the UK. As such, both the larger battery and its smaller sibling sit around the same price tag at the entry point £32,900 versus £32,500 respectively, so you'd be silly not to go for the larger car. You couldn't get much more for the equivalent of $43,500, that's for sure. With that 97 kilowatt-hour battery, you get a 230 brake horsepower motor and over 420 miles from a charge. Citroen's known for its cushioned ride, and this high rider is no different, boasting progressive hydraulic cushions in the suspension, smoothing out harsher bumps. Inside, the manufacturer's advanced comfort seats are also an industry favourite of ours, here getting heating, cooling and massaging functionalities on higher trim versions. Speaking of higher trim levels, even the highest echelon of C5 Aircross sits below the £40,000 or $52,000 mark.
In recent years, the rejuvenated MG brand has become the symbol of budget motoring in the UK. Chinese tech development subsidies paired with a simplistic approach to styling mean that you'll often find MG products at the cheapest chips end of each segment's pricing spectrum. MG's challenger to the Citroen C5 Aircross is this, the MG S6 EV. Up against Citroen's UK government-aided product, this full-size SUV does come across a little pricey. Failing to meet UK EV car grant criteria, it hits the market from £38,000, the equivalent of $50,000, meaning the most affordable model almost exceeds the top-spec Citroen. Nevertheless, it still sits lower than most other full-size electric SUV, making it one of the closest rivals to Citroen's newest offering. Visually, the MG is a little more blobby than the Citroen, but we can't deny it is a looker, especially from the rear end. Somehow, despite its size, it looks tight, compact and light on its feet, something that we cannot say about France's school bus. Under the shell, the S6 gets a smaller 77 kilowatt-hour battery and choice of rear or all-wheel drive setups good for 240 or 360 brake horsepower respectively. More powerful than Citroen's offering, it's also less efficient with less range but also longer charging times. Where the MG does show why it costs a little more is inside. Despite looking like the smaller car, the Anglo-Chinese SUV's boot is some 100 litres larger than the Citroen's, the equivalent of a pair of carry-ons. The difference isn't felt so much up front, however, as both models will sit 4 tall adults in comfort. In the past, we've found MG products to exceed their budget price tags with nice cabins, and that is no less true here. The S6 EV is a sea of nice materials and design, certainly more plush than aboard the Citroen, but previous time spent in MG products does leave us concerned about build quality. For years now has MG been the go-to budget option in the EV space, but as more mainstream manufacturers catch up on the EV tech front, that affordable alternative description is becoming less and less clear.
Hot hat shapes hiding hotter secrets. The TCR class is motorsport's equivalent of the teenage dream car. These road-derived be-winged racers take the best of the best compacts and send them out to the world's most prestigious racing circuits. Well, if you're in search of a bit of that juvenile fantasy, 4-pot rumble and turbocharger whistle included, Hyundai's latest creation might just tickle your fancy. Say hello to the Hyundai ELANTRA N TCR, an even less mature take on the already raucous family car gone wild, complete with what has to be the largest wing we've ever seen on anything with 4 doors. Where the boring old regular ELANTRA N is already an angular shark determined to take on any and every other sea dweller, this TCR edition has evolved its own specific set of skills to try and fry far larger fish than itself. Obviously, those new adornments include the swan neck rear wing, helping push the rear end into the tarmac, but also new 4-piston brake calipers at the front for additional stopping power. That's about all you get extra over the standard N, however, as where other range-topping sports cars add power, this is all about perfecting a package. Under the ELANTRA's sloping bonnet is the same 2-litre 4-cylinder buzzer with its chirping turbo totaling 286 brake horsepower. That comes with either a 6-speed manual or 8-speed dual clutch, both of which have their merits. Originally only destined for Canada as a $3,500 premium atop the tamer ELANTRA N, this TCR edition is now set for US markets at some point in the first half of this year. So if you were already looking to get a hot Hyundai, you now have a second option to consider closer to boiling point.
In hot hatch terms, Hyundai is a manufacturer that many will consider as straying from the beaten track. Honda Civic Type-Rs and Volkswagen Golf GTIs will be a more traditional first choice for many, or at least they used to be first choice hot hatches. On European soil, the Golf GTI equally gets a motorsport-inspired upper echelon dubbed the Golf GTI Club Sport. Taking the now 50-year-old sporty icon and giving it a bit more juice, Germany's best can pump out an ELANTRA matching 296 brake horsepower. Dropping the regular car's 6-speed shift and only coming in 7-speed DSG form, the Golf GTI Club Sport is far more of a dedicated racer than the road-focused standard car. Nevertheless, its cabin is a comfortable, family-friendly space full of gadgets, gizmos and nice materials, perfect for your daily commute. Indeed, much like the Hyundai, Volkswagen's beefier Brute remains a docile domestic from the inside. Available from £42,000 in the UK, that's over $55,000, the Club Sport sadly never made its way to the US and so will never compete with Hyundai's latest and greatest. One hot hatch that, while rapidly on its way off to exit stage left, is still available in the US is the Honda Civic Type-R. Now it's a $47,000 model, making it at least $7,000 more expensive than the ELANTRA NTCR. But for that money, you get over 300 brake horsepower from a peppy 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder. That's more power than either of its rivals. Much like the ELANTRA, the Civic gets a lot of its persona from its TCR racing counterpart, with its protruding wing, bold power plant, and critically acclaimed chassis. Often a protagonist in the debate for the best hot hatch currently available, the Honda Civic Type-R is a special bit of kit, and it's sad to see it fall to the wayside as loud, non-hybridized sports cars become social pariahs. But it's good to know that once Honda does call it a day on Type-R production, there's another leery hot hatch waiting to take up the battle.
That's all we have time for this week, but do join us next time when we'll finally get to check out the upcoming Porsche Cayenne in detail and Chrysler's Pacifica goes from boring to bonkers.